everybody.
Lillian's here. Eloise and John. Hi, everybody.
And our friend Admin.
And Admin's back.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome, everyone. So glad you're able to join us today on this little webinar we like to call Virtual Brunch with Actual Nerds. My name is Leighton Rasco. I'm from Attendee Management. I'm a nerd, and I'll be moderating our discussion today. However, I doubt you're going to hear much from me because we have 4 great guest nerds who are crushing it right now. We're all ready to turn the page over to 2021, and these planners are already living it. I'm sure you all are also living in the future, so I probably don't even need to go over housekeeping notes. I mean, you probably already know to stay muted when you're not talking, right? And you've probably already updated your Zoom name to reflect your full name as well as your organization. You already know that this is an Ask Me Anything style webinar, so your participation is encouraged. And of course, you know how to drop a question in the chat and raise your hand to speak up. I'm sure most of you have already watched our previous webinars by going to attendingnet.com/archive or found the YouTube channel by searching Attendee Management on YouTube. And in the future, we know that your time is valuable, so that's why we have a few shorts up there too that spotlight our favorite moments from previous episodes. And thanks for forwarding the emails and stuff to your friends and liking, sharing, and commenting on social media like you guys have been doing. That stuff really helps us out. And so we're gonna skip all that stuff. We're not even gonna talk about it. Housekeeping notes are so 2020. So let's just move on and start introducing our fantastic panel of planners. First off, alphabetically, we have Katie Boner. She is Vice President of Meeting and Design and Experience at Alhi. How are you doing, Katie?
Hi, I'm good. Good morning, everybody. Leighton, you want me to tell them what I do?
Let's go through real quick and then we'll come back around. And
Perfect.
Yeah. Next, we have Kelly Chaco. She is the Director of Events at Eurofin. Hey, Kelly.
Hi, everyone.
The background wave where your hand looks like a Aquaman's hand. Next up, we have Jessie States, CMM. She is the Director of the MPI Academy for Meeting Professional International.
Hi.
Hey, Jessie. And last up, we have Mike Vidican. He is the Executive Director of Orthopreneurs.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
And of course, we have our usual nerds, Jeff, Christina, Jill, Jennifer, Reagan. Kara's down there. These are our AMI nerds. They're happy to answer any questions we have as well. But let's get to our panel because that's why you guys are here. So back to the top. Katie, how are you doing? Tell us what you've been up to lately. You've been doing some cool stuff.
I'm doing awesome. It's nice to be with you guys. I'm Katie Boer, and I am the Vice President of Meeting Design and Experience for ALHI, which stands for the Associated Luxury Hotels International Organization. So what our company does is we're a global sales and marketing organization for almost 300 luxury independent hotels. But my role is essentially VP of events for my hotels and our customers. And so our organization over the last 8 months has been really focused on doing face-to-face meetings. We've done 9 face-to-face events since the end of July, ranging from sizes of 50 people all the way up to 125 in person. 3 of those have been hybrid experiences, and we've been in cities all over North America. So that's really what my world has been lately. My events team has really become COVID safe protocols experts and are really excited to be sharing that kind of education with our customers and with our hotel partners. So that's what I've been doing.
Thanks, Katie. Oh, I'm sorry, I combined you guys' names and I was going to go to Kelly next. Thank you, Katie. Kelly, how are you doing?
Good. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Taniyuki Chaco, and I work for Eurofins. And Eurofins is a global laboratory testing company. So our core business is laboratory testing, and we've been doing that for 30 years. All across the world, we have 800 laboratories and 45,000 employees. So we have a really big presence here in the US and Europe. And really, we are in pharmaceutical and environment and food and agriculture and all over. So when the pandemic hit, we were uniquely prepared to be able to bring all of our divisions together to create an offering of COVID testing solutions. So a lot of my world the last 6-7 months has been using those solutions for our own internal events. And like Katie, we've had some internal ones since July. There were about 50 people as well, and we're ramping up for our January national sales meeting, which is about 120 people as well. So we're using all of these different COVID testing solutions and not trying to keep the cat in the bag. We want to share this with everybody and let other planners know that, you know, the solutions are out there. So if you're ready and willing to have a live event, we can help you bridge that gap and add to your safety protocols. So that's been a lot of the focus the last few months.
Great, thanks. Next up, alphabetically, we have Jessie States. How are you doing, Jessie?
Good. My name is Jessie States. I am the director of the MPI Academy at Meeting Professionals International. The last few months, we've been focusing a lot on our digital deliveries. So last year, we actually moved to a lot of our certificate programs to the digital format, which enabled us this year to really excel quickly when everyone else was starting to pivot. In addition to that, we planned an in-person event at the beginning of November for about 700 people at the Gaylord in Grapevine, Texas. And so that event was held in person. It was also a hybrid event, so we had a digital component for a digital audience. Jill was one of our ambassadors, really active as part of the digital experience, but that has taken up a lot of our time. So that's what we've been working on.
Yeah, and that was in November, so it's over now. I'm sure you have plenty of time to just sit back and relax. All right, and last but of course not least, we have Mike Vidican. How are you doing?
Good. So yeah, I'm Mike Vidican, and I help to run, basically run Orthopreneurs, which is an organization where we help orthodontic practice owners live better lives, help them increase their profitability, lower their stress. And pre-COVID, we were running 5 to 6 in-person CE events a year, including an annual event where we were on track this year to have about 1,200 attendees at the Fairmont Austin. And 3 months before the meeting, we realized that was just not going to happen. We were holding out hope, like a lot of other planners. But within 3 months, we shifted to virtual and had about 700 attendees on that. And I'm sure more of that will come up later. We're hoping that our next annual meeting, which will take place in Denver, will be about 1,200 to 1,400 attendees. So currently just making plans to to hopefully have that one be a success.
Thank you, and thanks to all of our panelists for being here today. One thing that I was a little surprised about on our pre-calls is that, we kind of thought, we're going to be talking about hybrid and virtual a lot, but no, we talked a lot about meeting in person. So instead of alphabetically, we're going to go numerically. Jessie, 700 people.
Yes. We hosted an event of 700 people about a month ago. In order to do that, obviously, a lot of changes had to happen when it comes to planning an event. And the first is to really understand whether or not it's safe to do that. So following government protocols, really understanding both the exact location of the event, but also regionally who's coming, and taking all of that into consideration before, kind of moving forward. But we were in the position where we were able to do that safely. We established a pretty consistent duty of care related to the in-person experience that took all of the protocols that are available to us right now to ensure the safety of our attendees. And it was successful. After the event, we asked everyone to report to us if they tested positive within a 14-day window of the experience. We had 3 people test positive. 2 of those had contact with somebody after our event and thus tested positive because of contact that happened that was unrelated to our event. One person started to feel ill on site and left immediately. That person later tested positive for the coronavirus. We did contact tracing with everyone we were aware of that person had met with, which was pretty extensive, and there was no evidence of any community transmission.
Did you use somebody internal that was, you know, at the event center, or was it the Gaylord Zone person doing the contact tracing?
We used an organization called In-House Physicians who actually came on site. We were actually going to utilize them for this event anyway before this crisis kind of happened. And they provide in-house services for medical needs. We also provided coronavirus testing on site. We had no one test positive from the tests that we provided. Anyone could have access to that or get tested at any time.
This is maybe
Kelly, this is kind of your area of expertise. Do you want to jump in real quick and
yeah,
talk
I was actually curious, Jesse, the testing that y'all provided, this question comes up a lot for us. You know, who ends up paying for that test whenever you're the attendee and then you go and you decide that you want to have a test just in case, or whether you're not feeling well and you need to get a test done? What was MPI's protocol around all of that?
The attendees would need to pay for the test. Was our policy, but the testing organization did accept, if you do have insurance, did accept different insurances. The cost of the test was, if you had no insurance, was $125.
Okay, good to know. And you know, we've I'm interested to hear about the contact tracing because we partner with a group that actually does Bluetooth devices for the contact tracing, and then we also there's been other companies that have come out about that piece of it that offer devices as well. So they vary in size, they vary in features and scope and price and all of that. And that's different from the manual tracing, which it sounds like that's what In-House Physician was doing. That's always an option too. I think everyone, even if you're not going to do the physical contact tracing with devices, that you need to be aware of and have a process in place for the manual piece of it.
Mm-hmm. And knowing that likely on staff, you don't have somebody trained to do that. So making sure that you have the resource that's, you know, you're paying for that, right? Those are the additional costs associated with hosting a meeting right now.
Yes, exactly.
Can I ask, pre-COVID, you know, putting COVID aside, did you used to have, you mentioned in-house physicians, would you have some medical staff on site just to deal with other medical emergencies?
Never, in my experience with MPI, some of you date back longer than I do here, only about 15 years for me, but we've never had a clinic on site. This was a full clinic, but we do have a security team, and that security team is composed of off-duty or retired first responders and police officers. So we do have on our staff people who are trained in emergency response and medical, but a lot of times your venue will have that too. So it's just a matter of kind of taking a look at what's available to you, and then how do you augment that. John, I see John turned off his mic.
I would augment that as to Dan Brown and his team. They're not ex-police, they're ex-fire. They were all firemen or EMTs. They've been with MPI for, God knows, I think 30, 35 years from the beginning of time. Dr. Spiro, I think, is the one you've been using with the in-house physicians. They've been in and out of MPI over the years too.
Oh, good.
There have been some medical emergencies which they have attended to, nothing serious, but the normal type of routine. If somebody trips and falls and twists an ankle or whatever, they've been there to handle that for MPI. So it's been a really beneficial situation. The advantage of the security team is quite obvious when you're doing something like this, especially now, is getting people also to be politely reminded of what they have to do to meet the protocols for the meeting, as well as protecting the organization from people who are not part of the meeting, from becoming involved with it as well, where you have no idea what their background or what their contact might be with somebody who might be sick or otherwise involved.
I think that's an important point, John, too, that about the gentle reminders. I think compliance is always a really big question when it comes to mask wearing at events, and it's nice to be able to say, not especially for internal events and corporate events, you're not the one who has to be the person who's the mask police. Nobody wants to be the mask police, right? So it's good to have that authority that's there and visible, that people know that, you know, that's who is managing part of that process. And I thought MPI did a really great job of it. Actually, at WEC, they had volunteers who would have a sign that says "Mask up, y'all."
I want one.
Jill, you want one? So if they would walk around, and so instead of having to physically, you know, approach somebody and say that, you could just kind of show it. And most of the time, I think people would be like, oh, they just forgot, you know, they had eaten something and forgot to put it back on. So I thought that was handled really well.
Yeah, that brought up a phrase I never heard before: fun compliance.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And Katie, you guys have taken an interesting approach to in-person events, you know, in quotes, in person, because can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with kind of the regional, I'm drawing a blank on the word you used, but simulcast? That's it.
Yeah, I can. Well, and I'll just second that, you know, Jesse did talking about MPI. I attended that live and it was really, really well done. So I felt really safe as an attendee, and I felt like they did a great job with enforcing compliance. And also the in-house physician process was really easy to understand what each attendee did every day. So I thought you guys did a great job. So well, our most recent event, as I said, we've done 9 face-to-face events since the end of July, all kind of some different formats. We've done some multi-day events with 50 to 60 attendees. And then we've also done some day regional events, because a lot of what we're doing right now is wanting to showcase what these protocols look like. And it's really hard, you know, as a planner you watch videos, you read about them, but to actually see them executed is super important, because you want to understand what it feels like. So most recently on November 11th, we did a multi-day or multi-city day event. And so we had 4 cities that all did live in-person experiences. And then we had a virtual component as well. We had 2 content hubs, one on the East Coast and then one kind of Southwest in Scottsdale. And we broadcast content from both hubs. And the virtual audience had an experience in then each city, which was Chicago, Scottsdale, Orlando, and Dallas. I was like, I know there's a 4th one. They all had an experience that was unique for the face-to-face event. So what we were trying to showcase there is, like, a lot of us have these like 200 to 250 person sales events. And due to travel restrictions, travel bans, or maybe just even comfort level, you can't travel everybody to one location. So how do you actually set up regional experiences where you've got more of a drive-in crowd that comes to a regional property and then connect all the properties together? And so we were trying to show what that could look like. So we had 50 in Orlando. In Chicago, we could only do 25 due to government guidelines and kind of their city municipal guidelines. Then we had Scottsdale, we had 50. So it's like, how do we bridge all that? And then we had 800 on virtually. So our overall audience size ended up being about 1,000, which at this time we would not bring 1,000 together in person yet. So it was just a cool experience to see what that looks like. And then how do you really design something that's experiential for each, attendee. So that was what we did on the 11th.
And it was done really well. I was a virtual attendee, and I thought that the hub and spoke approach for the regional events and was incredibly innovative in the way that you seamlessly tied all the production together with multiple run of shows and multiple time zones. And I know it wasn't easy, but as a virtual attendee, it was a great experience online, and being able to connect via chat with those that were in person, I thought was incredibly impressive.
Thanks, Kelly. That was like one of the coolest things we did, which was actually feedback from, we had done something like this in August where we had an audience virtual and then we had people in person in Dallas. And what we heard was that the virtual attendees didn't feel connected to the in-person attendees. And the in-person attendees were really jealous of the chat, because chat has become this like way that we can interact. And all the in-person people are like, I want to see what's going on in the chat. I want to know what's happening. So you have this like interesting FOMO from each audience. And so I had told our production partner, Solomon Productions, I'm like, hey, how can we bring that together? So we actually had people logging in person to the same chat the virtual audience was on, and they could all communicate. And it was funny, they started like bragging on the food they were having, and people were asking specific questions about like, how does it feel to sit there? What's your experience like? And then we actually, one of the things that I was most nervous about, and I saved till the very end of the event, was we had Sarah sat on stage in Orlando and I sat on stage in Scottsdale, and we had a conversation together. And then when we broadcast that out, and it worked, but we saved it to like the very last thing. And I was like, I was sweating bullets like till the end, but it was a really cool way to show how you can bridge even your speakers that are in multiple locations, and to do that both virtually and for the in-person experience.
What was the tech platform that you used?
So Solomon Productions provided the virtual streaming. They have a proprietary technology they use, but then we also had to lean really hard on each hotel's AV team, which was PSAV Encore, because it's really, it's connecting all of them. And I think I was telling you, Mike, we did like a pre-production call with the CSM at every property, the AV team at every property, and the virtual side, then my event contact for every city. So we did these like big pre-production calls, and then we did a almost 3-hour tech rehearsal the night before to run like a Q to Q as well. Because there's just so many different moving parts and so many things you want to make sure you have captured. But it was overall received really well. And I think it was great because it's like, for those that are ready to meet, we provided an opportunity for them to be in person. And then for those that were not able to join us for whatever reason that was, they were able to join virtually.
Katie, you're Alex. Oh, sorry.
I was
No,
just going to say, what was your time frame, your planning time frame? How much time did you get to try to throw this together?
Well, I always use a caveat when I say this, because I wouldn't recommend the time frame that I had. But we did this in less than 30 days. We put this together. So it was a lot of coordination. I have a really incredible team. And so I ended up I have 3 full-time on my events team, and then I have a part-time as well. But we expanded into our organization. I trained some people up in how to do different things, but we had 30 days to make it happen. So that was really like hugely based on our partners, like a lot of just, so I say, don't like use that as a guide. Like, don't do it in 30 days.
You know, this is probably a question that I should have asked on the pre-call. So right now, I'm personally curious, like, what do you use between your team to communicate this crazy schedule in such a short time? And I'm guessing you guys aren't all in the office together all the time.
We're not. Actually, my entire team is remote. So I don't have anybody that's in the same office that planned this event. We did all virtual. So like planning for it. So, you know, we did a lot of calls together to walk through things as a team. I will say something that's unique that we've done is really all become utility players. And I'm sure those of you that are planners on the call understand this. Like, whereas we used to maybe have the luxury where this person does this person does this, and this person does this, we've diversified and we've cross-trained a ton as a team. So my team is super empowered and trained to do kind of everything so that we can really lean on each other to make sure that we can all accomplish that. So that's just a shift that I made with my team this year, because I wanted everybody to know everything about each event. So if at any point something was needed to be covered, we could lean on each other in that way. But I mean, gosh, like we didn't even use, I mean, we use SharePoint and we use Teams, really, like we lean really hard on those, but we didn't do anything outside of that.
Yeah, I know you said you use a lot of text messages too.
Well, yeah, in the day of the
feature.
event, everybody asked like how we communicated between the sites the day of. And when we did our tech rehearsal, we had set up a Zoom call that we had to have everybody logged into in the room that was not a show computer, that was actually just a planning thing so that we could all communicate while we did the tech rehearsal. But the day of, we used a group chat. And I'm like, it was this super, elevated tech platform called group chat, text messaging, group text. So that's literally what we used, because we would be like,
it's something that everybody knows how to use and they get it.
Is.
They're not going to mess it up. I mean,
yeah. And sometimes you're like, why overcomplicate it? So we would text and be like, hey, Orlando stage is clear, Dallas stage is clear. Like, and so we would go through and do that piece. So.
Jesse, what did you guys use?
Yeah, I put in the chat, we used WhatsApp.
Yeah.
It provides that functionality and it allowed us to have all of our tech partners in one space, regardless of where they were, because some of our Freeman team from the virtual platform side was working from their homes. We had Freeman team members who were on site that were part of the broadcast experience from the general session. We had Solomon Productions as well that was managing our digital broadcast. So all of those partners needed to be in one space to connect.
Yeah, and we use the Teams app actually for our internal, because we downloaded Teams on our phones. So we kind of use that as a group chat feature as well. So that worked well for us.
That's pretty amazing that you guys are able to do all that with really basic tools that everybody has access to. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit. We touched on audience engagement, which I know we all had our minds blown by Mike's awesome swag box that he sent out, and I feel like that might take some time. So I'm gonna move over to him and let him show off what they did to engage their virtual audience, just by sending them a box of stuff.
Yeah, so just to set the stage for why we did it, we had 800 people signed up as of February this year for a meeting that was supposed to take place in mid-October. And so we were expecting to actually have about 1,000 people. And for context, last year we had 715 people total signed up for our meeting that took place in 2019. So for us, that was going to be about a 30% increase in the number of attendees. It was going to be huge. We were planning for this massive event. We knew that at that point, Texas was still kind of open for business. We were still able to potentially have our meeting at the capacity that we wanted. But of course, we're getting all sorts of questions. We're getting all sorts of things. I think what sealed it for us is our meeting is very experiential. It is supposed to be, so we cater to doctors, and those doctors typically go to conferences where you can think of the most basic AV setup. Maybe food is provided. If anything, maybe it's a continental breakfast, maybe just coffee. They're not used to 5-star. They're not used to that stuff being presented at a meeting. And we take it up a notch by basically having fully immersive, engaged attendees, everything experienced. I mean, it starts with a cocktail hour. We've got breakfast buffet. We've got all the snacks. We've got lunch. We have dinner. We do entertainment. We have surprises that come in, from marching bands to all the mascots in the city coming out and throwing t-shirts and hats and stuff. And so the question was, can we still have that type of a meeting in October? And we saw this video from the hotel trying to show us how safe it was going to be, showing people sitting 6 feet apart, showing them spraying everything down. And we looked at it and we were thinking to ourselves, God, there's no way that our attendees can have that level of engagement and can have that incredible experience that we try to expect. And there's a lot of networking that takes place and little huddles, where you grab somebody in the hallway and you sit down, you put your arm around them like, hey, great to see you. Hey, let's chat about your practice. What are you doing? And we realized that it wasn't possible. So we waited as long as we could. And 3 months before, we said, all right, got to change to virtual. And so we immediately started looking into how exactly. I had been doing a little bit of precursor planning in terms of how is this going to happen. But once we pulled that trigger, we started looking into swag as a way, and we found a really great agency where the way that he approached the swag box was, there are a whole bunch of items that are going to allow you to engage with your audience. So you're going to bring the physical into the digital. And so we started to plan out what would that possibly look like, and how could we actually engage our attendees and provide them an amazing virtual experience, because everybody is zoomed out. Everybody sat on these Zoom meetings where it's one thing when it goes for half an hour, but then people were doing all day virtual meetings, and everybody here, I'm sure, has been on those. And so we were trying to find really creative ways, and we're willing to push the envelope. So what we did was we created a box that would kind of bring everybody into the meeting, and I'll show you. So it started with, we actually made a video. I don't think I can share it here, but we made a box that was a really amazing box that actually came in a regular brown box. You actually had to open that up to reveal this one. And so what you can't see on it is necessarily the fine detail inside. We had speakers that I'll show you in a second, that were converted into superheroes. And the theme of our meeting was going to be practice superheroes, or basically practice heroes. So you can be a hero in your community. So you get the box, you go to open it up. It's got this little snapshot of our founder wearing some cool virtual reality goggles. The box opens up, and what was inside, one of the things was inside was instructions to download an augmented reality app. And so you would download the app, and then this fuzzy area, the static area here, you would aim it there and would play a welcome message from him. And he would say, welcome, I hope you found it, found all this stuff. Talked a little bit about what was in the box, and then he let you in on a clue that, hey, if you scan other parts of the box, you're going to find some other surprises. And so one of those was when you scan the bottom of the box. I don't know if you guys want to see the video, but we made a pretty cool, for anybody that remembers playing Street Fighter, we basically remade a Street Fighter fight between an orthodontist and overhead, punching and kicking overhead, and the doctor's fighting overhead because they want higher growth. Other parts of the box linked, I wrote an article about the future of orthodontics and augmented reality, and how augmented reality could play a part in ortho practices. And if you scan the right thing, that would download. We also made trading cards. So for every speaker, we kind of converted them into characters.
That's my favorite, Mike. I love that so much.
And then the best is some of the guys like this guy, right? I mean, not even wearing a shirt. And that's one of our assistant, he's a professor, he's an orthodontist, he's got his practices. And we just, took all sorts of liberties. This, how cool are those? Every one of the speakers was just kind of blown away by it. And one of the other augmented reality aspects was, I'll try to find the card, but one of them, you would scan the card and it would pop up hey, you found another surprise, was a video, you found another surprise, click the button below to get a free t-shirt. And so they put in their information, they'll get a free t-shirt. And then with it, we had, some cool swag. So a really cool custom Yeti. It was also, a wine glass and coasters, and the coasters themselves have dynamic QR codes. So you could actually scan the code and you can pre-program it. So right now it might send you to one link, but I can change that online. And the next time you scan it, it'll go somewhere else. So if you want to hold a future happy hour, you just let everybody know, hey, everybody, we're doing a new happy hour. It's going to be next month. Scan the code to get the link, or if you want to change it up. We also did, we created a full workbook for the meeting. So we actually sat down with our speakers, and every single speaker, we came up with custom questions so that they would take notes in the book to keep them going with the entire meeting. So instead of getting burnt out on a Zoom meeting, you're able to sit down and know what questions are going to be coming up so you can take notes on those. We added in all sorts of extra fun, all sorts of other fun stuff. I think I've got here.
Mike, talk about the rip and reveal thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. What a great way to engage a virtual and a in-person audience and make them have the same experience at the same time.
Yeah, so we created envelopes. There were 4 different envelopes, and one of them I didn't mention on there, and this is great. So there were 4 different envelopes that would be opened at specific times during the meeting, and they also had that dynamic QR technology. So they needed to open the envelope and scan the QR code when the host told them to. So we kicked off Thursday night, and so the host said, okay, great. Open up your first rip and reveal. Let's see who's going to win a ticket to next year's summit and 3 nights free hotel. And so people grab their first envelope, open it up, scan the QR code, they go to a site, enter their email, and then we were able to announce a winner. We did a couple more giveaways. One of them was a Peloton, actually, and we did that at the very end. One of them that I didn't tell you about was we were looking for one of those surprises that would engage, attendees. People would just not be able to, they would be talking about it for months. And we hired a mentalist to do a session with attendees. So we brought him in, and he there were 9 different volunteers that were brought on stage, and he did various tricks where he would say, okay, I'm gonna guess, I don't know, something. And there were a few different, one of them was a card trick where you had them think of a card, he wrote it down, they shuffle, they pick out a card, they say, yes, this is it. And then he flips it over to show you he had predicted that that's what it was going to be, right? And you're kind of going, oh, what? And he did this with you know, think of a friend that this, and then he's going to write down the name of the person, and, you know, goes and reveals it. And people are like, I don't understand how this happened. And his final trick was, he's got 3 books. He says, here, I want you to pick which book, you know, says to one of the volunteers, you pick which book you want. They open up, you know, they pick one of them. He says, I'm just going to flip randomly. You tell me when to stop. He flips randomly. And he's got a little business card, and he scrolls and he says, okay, you tell me when to stop. And they say, okay, stop. And he says, okay, there's a word. And it's like, what's the word? And it's passion. He says, okay, open up your envelopes. Open up the envelopes. Yep, it's inside the envelope.
I adore mentalists. I'm so wowed.
I think I do.
Curtis the mentalist.
Mike, we have a ton of questions about cost and vendors that you use.
Lots of cost.
Good answer.
Yeah, we spared no expense. We didn't. It was expensive. Part of it is the cost of rushing everything for the box. I mean, we were paying rush charges on almost every item we got. I mean, we wanted to just blow people away. We had like towels made, you know. I think I've got it here somewhere. Well, maybe I don't. The solar powered phone charger that we sent out, the Yeti. I mean, roughly this was our VIP box. The VIP box was about $140 all in with shipping. And we were also rushing shipping and all that, but we were able to charge $5.99 for our VIP. So we charged $5.99 for VIP. It included a couple of sessions with our keynote speakers. I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff. So we were able to cover those costs, and we also sent out smaller versions of the swag box to the regular attendees, and those were probably in the $60 price range. So for us, the main reason we did the virtual meeting was we wanted to roll over as many people as possible that had purchased their 2020 passes to 2021. So our goal was get them engaged, give them a fun conference, roll them over to 2021, and we got 650 out of 800 people rolled over to 2021.
So Mike, did you change your pricing when you went virtual?
Totally. So our regular pricing is roughly $14.95 for in-person. And so, you know, figure you get rid of the food, the entertainment, I mean, a lot of that other stuff. We went down to it was $167 for super early bird. That was when we first announced it. It went to $197, and then I think it was $319 or $327. That's sort of the final price. And we had a ton of people sign up the last week before the meeting. I mean, it's amazing how many people sign up. So just when you think you don't know if you're going to get your numbers, it's crazy.
Mike,
It's the day of.
That was a big lesson for us. And we, as an organization, we already knew that, because that's how people sign up for our certificate programs. Is they don't sign up ahead of time, especially when they have to pay for something. They're purchasing in the last couple of weeks. But there was some you know, concern, because we weren't getting the attendance that we were looking for, and it just played out that that wasn't something that we needed to be worried about. And so we're kind of collecting that data on when people make that purchase. They've made the decision to attend, but there's no hotel to buy, there's no airfare to purchase, there's nothing that would push them to go ahead and make that purchase until right before the event starts.
Yeah, our lesson.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that our lesson learned with that was that one thing I probably would have put on the site is that you're basically guaranteed to get your swag box on time if you order by this point. I ended up doing a lot of very expensive rush shipping for the VIPs, mainly because I wanted them. I ordered a lot of overnight VIP packages for people that purchased 2 or 3 days before the meeting, because we just felt that's our level of excellence. We needed to show those VIP, those people that we're going to pay that. If you're going to spend $1,000 on a virtual meeting, we'll go a little bit above and beyond for you.
Yeah, and quick question, Mike. With virtual events, a lot of it is you're looking at budget for live events versus virtual events. There's definitely, you can get rid of some costs, but virtual has its own set of costs, and especially if you're enhancing it. So when you're looking at your entire budget that you're rolling over from 2019 to 2020, and you had the virtual event, do you have an idea that the percentage that you spent on just the swag box, what you allocated from what you would normally spend to that?
Yeah, I would say the swag box was close to half of the budget. So it was extensive. Some of the other things that we threw in there for experience, we actually hired Tony Horton of P90X fame to do our morning workouts. And so he custom recorded some morning workouts for the group. There's a lot of there are a lot of people that do workouts in our group.
Yeah, I watched at least 3 of those DVDs that we bought. So are you planning to move it to in-person again next year or virtual? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at in-person for October of next year. A lot of people I talk to seem to think that seems to be likely, especially with the vaccines, with treatments, with, who knows what else. I'm really interested in hybrid, and I'd like to see if that's possible. I think I mentioned to you guys last time on the last call that one of our concerns was just around the networking. Like, I didn't know how to get good results from virtual networking. I mean, I know people type on chat, but how do I get the virtual attendees to really feel like they're there? How do I get the people who are there to want to interact with people who are not there, aside from just the normal chats that they would do?
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things I think to do, is to connect a virtual audience with a real audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jesse could speak to that a little bit. I know this member of the virtual audience was extremely engaged just because I never knew when I was going to be up on the big screen.
Yeah, so that was actually a last minute ad for us. Our marketing team was like, hey, we should do this. You know how marketing teams are. And
I'm just going to jump in real quick and say that we never actually explained what y'all are talking about.
Yeah.
At the WC, they had sort of like when you watch sports now, they have like a fan, like the virtual fans in the audience.
Fan cam.
Yeah, we had a fan cam. So I don't know if any of you watch WWE, but or even the NFL draft, but you see the fans in the audience, and we brought our fans up onto the general session stage. So there was a fan cam where our in-person attendees could see our virtual attendees, and that was a lot of fun. And we're really happy with the way that turned out.
Yeah, that was a great idea. And it's fun that I feel that the virtual attendees were almost scared that they were going to be on the stage, so they had to pay more attention.
Yeah. And then we also had one of our European leaders was a co-MC virtually. So we had a big screen on stage, like a giant iPad type thing, where our in-person MC and our European leader would communicate and talk with each other. And that we also found that having the in-person studio had a clear plexiglass background, and the digital audience could kind of see what was going on behind. Yeah, I've talked to somebody who attended the other day, and she was like, yeah, every time I saw someone I knew, I'd text them. I just saw you on the TV, so.
I literally waved at them, and one time I found myself knocking on my screen to see if I could get their attention.
So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was going to add, like, something that we've learned that's super important is to not leave your virtual audience like out there hanging. And so, like, one of the things that we added for our November event that was different than August, well, what we did both times is we had a virtual MC and somebody that kind of hosts them through the process, lets them know what's going to happen next. The same way you would do like Voice of God in person, or an MC on stage to do housekeeping, you really have to do that for virtual as well. And then we added chat moderators, and chat moderator is my word for it, but it's probably not even the right word. We just added chat like hosts almost, because we're so used to and conditioned in this environment that if we type something into a Zoom chat, somebody needs to respond to us. Like, we expect that. And so my first event, we didn't really assign anybody to that, and we just thought it would happen organically. But when you have 800 people in there and they all have specific questions, I actually assigned 2 of my events team to be in there to answer questions, which worked a lot better in our November event, because people would ask things about square footage and right now we're so intrigued by events that are happening like this. But I think that would happen even in your own space for your own industry. They're going to have questions, and so they're used to getting responses. And then I'll just add a learning that we didn't do correctly is, I wouldn't even say didn't do correctly, but something that I would change is we did really quick content for November 11th, and we didn't do a ton of question and answer with the panelists or the speakers. And I also think we've gotten to where we expect that now. Like, we have access to speakers and we expect that I can ask you a question and you're going to answer it for me. So what I would do the next time, I probably would let either the panelists log into the chat and respond to all the questions that they received, or I might bring everybody back up and do just like an open Q&A afterwards, because I felt like that was a piece that's super important. And so I just would have solved for that. And so we'll solve for that differently the next time I do this.
Well, now I feel like I need to ask Jane Space's question about the technical costs of the fan cam.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, we use Zoom for that. And what we did was we sent our attendees a link, and they were welcome to kind of join. And so, I think a lot of people, MPI is an association like all the other associations out there, and we have to look at how do we scale solutions, right? How do we take a big idea that you can absolutely do for great costs, but also how can we take a look at ways to do that incredible idea in a low cost way, and scale that solution. So I think that you can go all out with an incredible kind of like a technology packed, fancy, wonderful experience, but there are a lot of like hacks too that you can do, that you can use to kind of make these affordable. And that was something that we wanted to showcase at MPI too, was like, you don't have to have a huge corporate budget to pull off some really cool stuff. How do we experiment and showcase how to use tools that we all have in our pockets to create engagement?
So Jane chimed back in and said that her question was actually for Mike about the cost. So maybe we should shut this chat thing down because it's not working. Just kidding.
So the question to Mike was what?
It was about the technical cost and the sponsorship levels. I'm guessing of the.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just to break it down, the company that we use, they have it's called Langen Digital. I can put it in chat, but they have a proprietary platform. They set everything up for us. They actually did a lot of the marketing and ad buys as well. So their goal from the very beginning was, okay, you're going to use us. We want to make sure that you're going to at least break even. That's our goal. So we're going to do all the marketing, everything that we need to do to help you out there. They put together their sponsorship deck that kind of took what we would typically have as a sponsorship deck for in-person, and they converted everything to virtual. So you get you have a virtual space, you get these contacts, everything was kind of shifted into virtual. And then they worked with the sponsors directly to make sure that they got everything. So that was another piece we talked about, was engaging sponsors, and the sponsors got custom landing pages essentially that converted really well. So, whatever the message was for the sponsors, they were happy with it. It was about 40 grand for the platform to work with them. I want to say, was there other technology that we worked with? We bought a lot of webcams, ring lights, and AirPods for all the speakers. So we made sure that every speaker we were working with, we just bought a pair of, I think it was the AirPod Pros. So we bought them the AirPods, we bought them ring lights, we bought them webcams. And that way we made sure that every single speaker that we had, I think we had about 36 of them, had the proper setup as well.
Thanks, Mike. As long as we're talking about cost, I just want to shift gears to future and tap Kelly for her knowledge about contact tracing and testing, and what do we expect to budget for 2021?
That's a good question. And it made me think of it actually earlier when you were talking, Mike, as well. You talked about how you're looking at October for your hybrid event and, you know, what those hybrid events look like and how much they are hybrid and whether, you know, the vaccine comes out, is that going to change anything? And I think a lot of people that I've spoken to have, you know, they talked about having the hybrid events and, you know, deciding what capacity and how many people are going to be in person. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought. And I was thinking about too many things at one time. So with that,
That's what this whole year has gone.
Yes,
I imagine that's
exactly.
what contact tracing is like as well. There's just too much. There's so much happening.
2020 in a nutshell. But what I was going to say was the vaccine is that the testing is still really important, I think, because with the vaccine, how are you controlling that everybody has that? You know, there are a lot of people who are not going to get it in no matter what. They just don't want that in their body, and they're very vocal about that. And, you know, people who just, how are you going to be controlling, knowing that privacy, that piece of it before they come to an event? So a lot of people see testing as the next steps for that, to kind of bridge it for those that are going to be in person. You can do, there's a number of things that you can do. There's at-home testing before people even leave, and then you have them, all results are distributed via HIPAA in a HIPAA compliant way through a portal. And then you can have people download their results via PDF and then show as proof of result that they have a negative result before attending a meeting. When you get on site, there are a number of other things that you can do. We've seen people who do rapid test the day of when they arrive, and then you get your results in 15 minutes. Then we've also seen people who combine that with getting a PCR test at home once they return. So that helps with your contact tracing as well, and identifying if you have somebody who's positive but is asymptomatic, that could have been shedding this while they were there, and they would have no idea if they had no symptoms, you know, the following 14 days after an event. We've also seen people who, you know, they just want depending on the needs of the event and your audience, and why it's so important to know what your audience is comfortable with, you know, they want to do the rapid testing every day versus a PCR testing, because they want those immediate results, and not, even though PCR testing can get your results back in 24 to 48 hours from the point that it's received at the lab, and a lot of times that's 16 to 24 hours, that's still not fast enough. People want that instant gratification, that instant knowledge of, you know, by this test, which you know, there is a little bit of inconclusiveness with rapid antigen testing. PCR testing is truly the gold standard for specificity and accuracy. But if you're doing rapid testing every day, people are being very compliant with mask wearing. You don't have anyone who's truly symptomatic with high fevers and, you know, high viral shedders. Normally you can get away with, as long as you have the rapid testing and all of that, you're not going to have a big person in a super spreader event. So all of those kind of, you asked about the cost, Leighton. So all of those kind of vary. I've seen, you know, people who just want to do rapid testing one day. They can, you know, you have to apply for the legal requirements without having an extension from our laboratory to cover you. There's a medical professional that's required for antigen testing on site, medical waste removal, because you have all of that biohazard material. All of that considered, you're looking at a 50, 60 person event, probably $100, $115 per person. If you want to do rapid testing every day for a 4-day event, it's probably going to be closer to $500 because you're paying for that test. But the good thing is that with rapid antigen testing, you have a device that you stick your cartridge and your sample in to read the result, and you own that device, which can be used for future events. So you can use that specific device for up to 3,500 tests. And even once the pandemic is over, hopefully in the next year, you can repurpose those devices to check for flu if that's something that you want to do. So you can repurpose these things for future uses, not specific just to COVID as well. So everything kind of varies, and depending on the needs of what people want, you can have an added per person cost of $100 to $600 if you really want to do full on blowout protection beginning to end of everything.
There's a future where people are just going to be carrying around their own testing device to see what they have.
Leighton, can I sort of jump in here, because I think one of the things we got to be very careful about here are the legal requirements, and Kelly alluded to those as to privacy and HIPAA and all the rest of it that we're involved with. I think the key element too is, even before people get to the program, let them know what you're going to be doing, because that, if they show up at the scene and find out you're going to be doing something they object to, they're going to really be not happy camper. So I think the key element is let them know up front what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing, and then always with the caveat is what are the rules that you're going to require while they're there? Going back, Kelly, a little bit sooner to what we were talking about before, as to compliance with the rules. The hotel may have rules, the venue may have rules, and the like. The other thing too, there's a little misconception, I think the jury is still out on this. Even though a person is vaccinated, that doesn't mean they're not a carrier. And so that protects the individual. It doesn't necessarily protect the attendee who is there who might be exposed. So we have all these factors that come into play. And we're still dealing with a lot of uncharted water here as to what we're faced with. I stopped doing PowerPoints, and I made this comment earlier, because what I put down on a PowerPoint on a Friday, probably not going to be applicable on a Monday, or for that matter, tomorrow. It's such a changing scene that we need to be prepared and pay attention to what's going on. But again, I'll go back to the caveat is let people know up front what you expect of them and what they can expect from you.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, that's a really good point, John. For all of our events, you know, we've been improving each time. We've used testing each time, and, you know, speaking with others and going to events like MPI and ALHI and seeing what the process is, it's so important to over communicate the expectations, not only of what you are providing as an organization, but what is expected of the attendee, because really the onus cannot be completely on the organizer. There has to be a part played by the attendee as well. To what extent, that's what needs to be determined. I think you have to, you know, as far out as you can, if you know you're doing testing or things like, or what you're doing for your health protocols, you start laying that out, because that's also going to help convince people whether they want to go or not and attend in person. If you attend in person and all of a sudden you're seeing that you're obligated to do testing and contact tracing, those types of things, that opens you up to that risk and that liability. If you're communicating that in advance and letting them know with ample time that, you know, here's what's expected, here's what we're doing, here's a waiver that you sign ahead of time, here's a waiver you sign on site, as well as communicating the duty of care and all of that you're doing, that's really what's going to help protect you, that you're doing enough to give them that safety. You can't guarantee that they will be safe, but you're doing what you can and what's in your control to kind of help supplement those aspects of it. And
the other thing too, you got to be careful about is you might think you've got some insurance behind you with an insurance policy that you bought. Don't count on it. The no. Policies today that are coming out, communicable disease is something that is now an exclusion.
Yes, and hopefully there is the legislation going through right now trying to protect the businesses against the frivolous lawsuits, which is excellent. I think that's what everyone's biggest concern is, right? If I have an event, how liable I am if somebody gets COVID, and you want to protect yourself from that. But also, it's the proof of identifying I specifically got this virus at this event. That's going to be part of the charge as well, trying to identify that, which can be a challenge.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I think we could go another 2 hours, but I've got great news for everybody. We could do this again in about a month on January 14th when we have another virtual brunch with actual nerds. So mark your calendar. We'll just keep talking about good stuff like COVID testing. That didn't transition as well as I was hoping, but you guys have been doing a great job of sharing and liking our social media, and we thank everyone for joining us. We love you all. Happy holidays. See you in 2021.
Absolutely.
Thank you to our panelists. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Mike, Kelly, Jesse, Kelly, Katie. Next time our panelists shouldn't have such similar names.
Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays.
Hey, happy holidays to you too.